Brad Womble, Senior Director of Strategy for Cirtec Medical. Welcome to the podcast.
Nice to meet you, Kayleen. Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Oh, really, it's going to be my pleasure. I promise you this, Brad. So, for
Okay.
our audience, I always like to start at the 40,000 foot level. So, for those who don't know who Cirtec Medical is, could you give us a brief overview? Who's Cirtec Medical?
Yeah, Cirtec, we are a diversified medical device company. We primarily focus on both class two as well as class three, which are implantable medical devices. And we're really focused on a couple of key areas. We're really focused in the neurology space in a place called neuromodulation, which is all about how to stimulate nerves, read nerves, that sort of thing. And then we're also really focused on the interventional therapy space, and that could be either neurovascular type products as well as cardiovascular products, but all of them are more interventional. So they're going in your body, but then they're coming back out. But all of them generally are in sort of the higher order of magnitude in terms of advancement. So electrophysiology, structural heart, things of that nature are what we're kind of focused on at Cirtec.
Well, it's really helpful to understand kind of the breadth and depth of your coverage. I know that I'd like to learn a bit more about your capabilities, but you caught my interest, Brad, when you said neuromodulation. So I just had the pleasure of co-hosting this episode of Abbott Talks, where we talked through neuromodulation. And as a layperson in this space, I got a better understanding of, really what that is. I loved how you explained it. Could you just give us maybe another high level, like what exactly is neuromodulation? And then what
Yeah.
work does Cirtec Medical do within neuromodulation?
So what neuromodulation does, and by the way, I mean, when I first started working in the neurospace area, when I first started learning about how neuromodulation works, I didn't think I'd have to go back that far to find the origins of this. I mean, I thought I'd have to go back 50 years, to find when they were doing the electroconvulsion therapies for like lobotomies, like back in the
Yeah.
1950s, which was obviously a very extreme way of using neuromodulation that they don't do any, or well, I mean, if they do it, it's like in such micro doses, it's a very different animal. No, I had to go back 5,000 years in order to figure out when we actually started to use neuromodulation. I mean, we were using neuromodulation during the Old Kingdom of Egypt. In fact, possibly even before the Old Kingdom of Egypt. I mean, they were using these torpedo fish that they would find in the Nile River, and the torpedo fish had electrical conductivity, and they would literally slap that bad boy onto your forehead if you were like having a migraine, and
Get out.
the electrical energy from the torpedo fish would actually energize the nerves that are involved in the migraine process,
Wow.
and as a result of that either reduce the pain or eliminate the pain. And they literally put this into medical treatises, right? So they literally developed medical textbooks in ancient Egypt to tell you how you could use neuromodulation. If you had gout, you'd step on the torpedo fish. It'd be bad for the torpedo fish, but imagine like this jolt of energy coming up through your body that resets those ion pump channels, the actual nerve activation aspects, related to gout. So yeah, we had to go back that far. So today, I mean, just imagine taking those same principles. Today we have non-invasive neuromodulation, which is using energy outside of your body, either from a brain perspective, they call it transcutaneal magnetic stimulation or transcranial ultrasound stimulation. But then, of course, which is what we're focused on, is the implantable neuromodulation technologies, where you're actually implanting the devices into the body to energize the nerves. But essentially, what you're doing is you have four different levers that you're pulling when you're doing neuromodulation. You have the ability of choosing the frequency, okay, and the frequencies generally go from like 1 hertz up to 300 hertz if we're talking about the brain. We're using pulse modulation in terms of like how quickly the energy is being delivered. We're looking at amplitude, which is, it goes to 11, that's the volume button where you're like, increasing the volume. That's when you can get some pretty good jolts going. And then the fourth thing is waveforms. I mean, you have sinusoidal waveforms, you have square waveforms, you have triangular waveforms, you have arbitrary waveforms. And just imagine you can choose any of those four levers to pull to try to modulate the nerve to get it to do what you want it to do. So effectively, what neuromodulation is, it's energizing that nerve to act in the way that you're desiring it to act, or as close as possible to that.
That's a great history, great backstory. I had no idea that arguably the first medical technology could have been a fish. Who knew?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Who
Well,
knew?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's our brain. I mean, our brains are really the first medical technology. The mind body connection is the ultimate therapy. I mean, if you can keep your ego connected to your subconscious, that is the strongest way to keep your body in wellness. It's also the hardest way, but it's also an area in neuromodulation that we're discovering that's on more the non-invasive side. But it's fascinating. Energy alignment is absolutely everything in life.
Again, that's super helpful. So, bringing it to Cirtec Medical, can you help me understand your neuromodulation platform, Excel Plus, and how that benefits the industry?
Yeah, yeah. The beautiful thing about Excel Plus, Cirtec Medical, by our nature, we're a contract manufacturer, meaning we love working with companies to help manufacture their devices and to help think of ways of taking their devices to even the next level. But one of the areas when we started our business is we're realizing that we have a lot of customers in the neuromodulation space that don't have their own platform. They have to develop their own platform, but they already have the therapy idea immediately. They already know how they want to use that device. But if it takes them 7 years to go from initial conception all the way to production, I mean, that's 7 years that therapy is not going to be in the market and it's not going to be benefiting the patients that absolutely need it. So our thought process was, well, why don't we acquire a platform that's already been a medical device, that already has gone through the FDA approval process, and take that platform and open it up, open source that to our customers so they can use that platform. And what we're finding is that in a lot of cases, it's 2 to 3 years of development time that are taken off the table. So, we're taking development times from say 5 to 7 years to, 3 to 4 years, and in some cases a little bit less if we're able to show proven applications. But the beautiful thing about our platform is it could be used for deep brain stimulation, spinal cord stimulation, which are about 80% of the market today, but also can be used for vagus nerve stimulation in your neck, and other types of peripheral nerve stimulation as well.
So, really, is this? I'm trying to kind of walk my way through it. It's almost a complete end-to-end neurostimulator design or complete
It's a system. It's a complete system. And not only is it the hardware, it's also the software that goes along with it. So,
really.
and that's what we really. Well, here's the thing. Excuse me. So we really want clinicians to be able to use this device, and by open sourcing it. And one of the big things by open sourcing it is we're allowing clinicians to play with waveforms. A lot of the devices on the market today, they really don't allow you to adjust those waveforms. That's sort of proprietary. They want to lock that in. But by allowing our customers to adjust waveforms, in addition to the other parameters that we're talking about, they're starting to think of new ways of tackling existing therapies, but then they're also able to use it for new therapeutic areas as well. And I think what we're finding is that there are so many different nerves that are potential candidates for different disease targets. I mean, there's so much within the brain itself. I mean, we are now looking at like mental health type issues like obsessive compulsive disorder, substance abuse, disorder. All of these types of indications could theoretically be useful to neuromodulation. Our goal is to help accelerate the industry, and that involves the software too, right? Because learning, the big thing in the future is really about remote monitoring of these patients in the field. And with our full system stack, we have the ability of enabling customers to monitor those devices in the field, and not only just those devices, but imagine pairing that with other third-party devices to measure like heart rate variability or weight scales or surveys for like how's your pain today, or how are you feeling today. There's a lot of different ways that the third-party data that's coming in could be helpful in terms of developing those algorithms and for customizing those algorithms for each of the users, each of the patients using the device.
And there's so much I want to dig into. I mean, your system and platform is so robust. And I love how you got from ideation to like application or commercialization. And I can see absolutely how it's going to take time to market and shorten that. Are there any other benefits to your neuromodulation platform that you hadn't already communicated?
Yeah, I would say that you were always thinking about the future, and we're thinking about what other types of indications the device, our platform could be used for, but we're also thinking about how medicine is changing and about how clinicians and physicians and population health groups are studying patients real time in the field. It's really how do we monitor patients in sort of a real time environment, right? Because I mean, frankly, that's what really digital health is about. And we've known for thousands of years that like personalized medicine, is really the key. I mean, in fact, Galen and Aristotle both were saying it in ancient Egypt. They're like, if we could have a physician, for every single person on earth, that's exactly what we need. But the thing is that it's only now that we actually have the technology to be able to start doing that. So the software platform that we've developed really enables that remote patient monitoring. And what we're also seeing is reimbursement codes opening up. So, there's the potential for other business models for our clinicians to take advantage of, monthly reimbursement rates for being able to monitor these patients in the field, not just the patients, but also the devices as well. So, there's a lot of opportunities to enable, new business models with using the right software and the right real-time environment.
That's really exciting. Um, and I love how you keep going back to philosophers and how what seems like a new idea is really an idea that we've had for tens of thousands of years, but the technology needed to catch up.
Well, it's interesting you say that because what we're finding is that the deeper we look in our past and the more that we understand history and the more that we understand cultures, the more that we realize how certain cultures were really in tune with how energy actually worked in the body. I mean, in fact, we're finding, I mean, just now, just from doing analysis on some of the architecture, like in India, we're realizing that some of these temples were literally designed harmonically so that they would vibrate at certain frequencies in order to help
Stop.
enable meditation to help heal bodies. So we've known about this for thousands of years, but what's happened is that we've kind of gone through this lull, and now that we've come back out of the hall, we're realizing that we can use technology to replicate what they had to build by hand, structures by hand, which took thousands of hours to build. So this is the next 2 to 3 years of our evolution is going to surpass the last probably 200 years of technological evolution. That's what's going to happen in the next 2 years, and it's going to be extremely profound.
I couldn't agree more. So let's kind of follow that vein here. Thinking about in the next 2 to 3 years, what are some examples, or even in our what you're seeing now? What are some examples of neuromodulation products or even research that you've seen and that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, so a couple of the areas that we're touching are pretty exciting. There's a couple of areas that we're not touching that I'd love to touch. But what we're seeing is that we're seeing miniaturization within the neuromodulation space. So a lot of our platform and other platforms, there's basically kind of like an IPG can. It's actually, I've got one here. They're about this size. This is our Excel Plus platform, or
So it
the
fits in the palm
device.
of your hand.
It
Okay.
does, and there's leads that come out from it that either are implanted in the spine or in the brain. Um, but what's exciting is that they're starting to able to miniaturize these devices. And imagine having a complete IPG, a complete one of those things that I just showed you, but implanted in your body right next to your nerve. And imagine having a bunch of those little tiny sort of neurostimulators implanted all over the nerve that you're trying to target. One, it miniaturizes it. It reduces the footprint, and the idea is that you're able to place those exactly where you need. So miniaturization of that technology is going to be super exciting. We're already starting to see that for deep brain. Imagine tiny little sort of little rice little tiny rice samples that are kind of embedded in your brain in the right spot instead of actual leads and wires that are kind of
Wow.
going down. But I'll tell you where it's going, and this is what's really exciting. Um, Nanobiology. Imagine that you're able to create little tiny nanobots that can resonate at a certain frequency. And imagine adding a little bit of iron, a little bit of ferritin, something that could attract a magnet. And let's say that I had like a shoulder injury. Now imagine that your body safely had these nanobots kind of floating around in your body that could resonate at a specific frequency, and you attracted them using, say, like a little mat or something that's covering your arm. You could theoretically, have your complete shoulder resonating at a certain frequency with these nanobots that could theoretically heal that part of your body in, some sort of exponential way. Now, we're a ways off, from that because obviously we have to get through the bioethics of that and so forth. But I mean, that's the future. The future will be using nanotechnology to help, heal our bodies, and that will be the neuromodulation of the future, I believe.
It's the future, but it goes right back to what you were just saying about the past and the architecture and the vibrations. It's sort of like it's
Everything's about
parallel.
frequency. Everything's about frequency, and it's yeah, it's really exciting. On many different levels, it's exciting.
We're Brad Womble, Senior Director of Strategy at Cirtec Medical. This has been one of the highlights of my week. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I loved learning more.
My pleasure, and thank you for the invitation again.